You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franzen here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Erwin Shustak is the founding partner of Shustak Reynolds Partners, a national law firm with offices in California and New York. Erwin and his firm practice in the areas of securities, finance, and the world of financial services. Erwin has practiced for 47 years and handled securities, financial, and business disputes across the country. Clients include financial institutions, broker-dealers, investment advisors, and financial fraud victims, and oh boy, has he seen it all. Hey, Erwin, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Good to be here. Thank you, Chad.
Hey, tell me, as we get started here, how and when you wanted to become an attorney?
Very young, actually. It really, I was drawn to the law, when I was a kid growing up, as most people in junior high school and high school are bullied. It really bothered me that there were victims and there were people that were stronger or appeared to be stronger that would take advantage of them. And I felt that I could best serve people, which is what I wanted to do, by being their advocate, by standing between them and the people that were trying to take advantage of them or push them around. And that really resonated with me. Partly, I was thinking of this the other day. There was a show on in the late 50s, early 60s with Richard Boone. It was called Paladin. And it was Have Gun Will Travel. And his business card said, Cable Paladin, San Francisco. And that's what he was. He was basically literally a hired gun. And that really appealed to me because people with problems, people in need came to him and he was able to offer them a solution. Well, we don't have guns. We don't strap on a 6-shooter, but we really are the legal equivalent of hired guns. People come to us when they have a problem and they want us to solve their problem and stand between them and the people that are causing them a problem. And that really, from a very young age, that appealed to me. That I was drawn to that very early on.
Did you feel like you had kind of a talent for, arguing a case or something like that as well?
When I was younger, I wouldn't say that I had a talent for speaking as much. I wrote very well. I was a newspaper in high school. I wrote a weekly newspaper column. I did very well in school. But what I did have is I'm not the kind of person that backs down. So when bullies would come up to me and I was tall, but I was thin, it didn't matter. I wouldn't back down. And I thought, that's a skill set that not everybody has. You can't push me around. You could try, and maybe I got beat up a few times and I picked myself up and kept going, but I didn't back down. And I thought, that's a good skill set that not everybody has. And I think that would serve my clients very well, having somebody that in a very professional, very ethical way, just doesn't back down, doesn't give up. And that's what we do. We just keep coming.
Very nice. So you knew what you wanted to do and the reasons why you wanted to do it. How did you kind of get started then in the legal industry?
I'm a little older than you certainly. I graduated law school in New York in the mid 70s, and the law was a different profession back then, different business. We still do the same thing today, but there was no technology back then, no FedEx, no computers. Lawyers weren't. I was with a very large firm, a very prestigious firm in New York, and I was a very fast typist because my mother wouldn't let me take mechanical power or something like that in school. She insisted I take typing, and I said, she goes to show you when I grew up what I thought. I said, well, what good is it going to be for me to learn how to type? When am I ever going to use typing? Well, of course, everybody types, and I'm a very fast typist and have been since I was in 6th or 7th grade. So it was different technological wise, but it gave me the ability to work very closely with the senior partners at this firm, very, very prominent people, former U.S. attorneys, top lawyers in their field. And I really got a sense of how you do things at the highest level, the very highest ethical professional level. And I really liked it. However, I'm an entrepreneurial person. And after a while, I thought, well, if I stay here for 10 years and really work hard, they'll make me the 350th or 395th partner. Does that really fit my personality? And the answer was no. I wanted to get clients. I wanted to go out and I wanted to build a law firm. And I really didn't know how to do it. My father gave me some very good advice. He was a very successful businessman and said, take your time. You got 50 years ahead of you, maybe longer. Learn your craft. Do everything you do well to the best of your ability, serve your clients. And um, sorry, it's an emotional thing because my mother died 10 years ago today.
I'm so sorry.
And for better or for worse, my sister reminded me early this morning with a text about that. But he was very, very helpful to me. And I took my time and I left and I took a very large office on Park Avenue in Manhattan in the 50s. So I had beautiful suits, I had a big office, very impressive, but I had no clients. So of course I realized, well, the suits and the office don't really do much for you if you don't have clients. And I decided I would go out and start to meet people and ask them for business. And the one thing that people want is, in those days, I think these now as well, they want a young, hungry lawyer. So pretty much if anybody in those days came in with a $500 retainer, whether it was an antitrust case or suing Helena Rubinstein and Colgate-Palmolive in a large class action, which I'd never done before, I was their lawyer. And I never settled the case. Lawyers would come to me and say, okay, it's time to settle. I say, that's fine, but you have to pay my client everything that they're owed. And many people said to me, Erwin, that's not how it's done. You don't understand. I said, well, then we'll just try the case, because I had never tried a case before. So start trying cases in New York, across the country. I was doing work for several international unions, doing arbitrations throughout the country. And bit by bit, I'd meet people, they would say, oh, you do this, you could do this kind of work. And really in those days, I would do anything. And I started to just do it. More and more people came to me. Then somebody who had been a few years older than I at this other law firm came to me one day out of the blue in my office. He's a very bright guy. He went to Cornell and he was valedictorian of his class, went to Yale. He was number 2 in his class. I think he was a year behind Bill Clinton. And he said, Erwin, I want to be your partner. I said, I hadn't seen him in a long time. I said, okay. I knew he was competent, very highly technical. So we formed a partnership. We started to hire people. I was much better at the business side of it. He was a real lawyer's lawyer, but he couldn't make business decisions. I grew up with a family of businessmen, and I know you have to make decisions. You have to move on, make another decision. So I was in charge of getting clients, running the firm, marketing, hiring people, and he was really a very, very excellent technical lawyer. So within a few years, we had a number of lawyers. We had bigger staff. We moved to bigger offices. Clients kept coming. My commitment to clients was, I can't tell you what the outcome's going to be, but I will tell you we'll do our best. And if we don't think you have a good case, we're going to tell you, and then you're going to have to settle the case, because that's a smart thing to do. That took me a number of years to figure out. So that the firm grew. We merged with another firm, got to the point where I had 30 lawyers and staff and secretaries, and a lot of headaches that come with growing a firm. And around that time, I and 2 other friends decided to form our own firm. People I'd known for years. They also came out of big firms. And we started what is now Shustak Reynolds Partners. It had a different name back then. And we were very successful. They were corporate lawyers doing very, very large, sophisticated deals. I was a litigator. So if there was a dispute, I would handle it. And then I was an older dad when my son was born. I decided I wanted to move to California. I'd spent a month every year for about 12 years in Santa Barbara. And I said to my partners, look, let's open an office on the West Coast. We had a national practice. We were traveling a lot. I said, there's a big demand for New York lawyers in California. I'm not sure where. So we looked at different cities and we decided on San Diego, which was really just coming out of a big recession from the early to mid 90s. But I could tell the city was poised for explosion, which is ultimately what happened. Moved to California, hired people. Within 3-4 years, half the firm was in California. The practice kept growing. Within 7 years, virtually everybody was in California, and my partner just didn't really want to manage the New York office, which was fine, and they went back to work for the kind of large firm that they had come out of. And then the practice just grew. I brought in more people, more partners, and I kept it in a manageable size because beyond a certain point, it gets very unwieldy. And we're still doing it. I've been doing it for 45 years in this firm. And I'm very proud of our reputation and the people we work with and the standards that we hold ourselves to.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's been quite a journey. At what point, when you were out there kind of talking to people, trying to get clients, and you were a young, hungry attorney, thought to yourself like I'm good at this?
It didn't come right away, believe me. I worked literally 7 days a week. I worked during the week. On weekends, I would take my car, motorcycle drive. I lived in the village, and I would go to Midtown. I literally was in the office 7 days a week. Late, I'd come home for dinner, go back. I just thought that if I worked harder and smarter than anyone else, or as smart and as hard as anyone else, I would learn how to be a good lawyer, and I would get results. And we started to get better and better results. I then did learn the magic of settling a case, which, it's not a hero's, just trying every case doesn't really make sense after a while. And I learned how to settle cases, how to negotiate, deal with other lawyers in a very professional way. And clients kept coming back. Especially in California, I would meet with people, which I love doing. I love to meet with people. I'm very quick at and adroit at figuring out their needs and the solutions. I love that part of the law. That was what I really loved in law school. And I would ask them, why are you coming to us? I mean, we were new to California. And the answer always was, I want a New York lawyer. I don't want a California surfer guy. I said, well, I'm from New York. I don't surf. So if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. Whether it means something or not is not up to me to say. But I do think when you come out of New York and you're trying cases on your own against big law firms and big corporate clients on the other side, I think you do learn a great amount in federal court, state court, appeals. And I do think that gave us a real edge in California, and things just really exploded very quickly.
What drew you to specialize in securities, FINRA, and financial regulatory law?
The partner I mentioned before that joined me, he was really a mathematical genius, real numbers guy, and I wasn't. And he had a lot of clients, young clients that had seats on the stock exchanges. In those days, there was the American Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, NASD. That's all changed. I mean, there's no longer any of these exchanges where people are actually on the floor doing much. But he started to bring in some very, very high profile clients, and we started to service them. And I realized, this is really interesting stuff. I'm good at it. It's a niche area, which is always a good area to be in. And we started to get very good results, and more and more people came to us. And I realized that it was great to be in a niche area. It's considered a specialty, and we were getting better and better at it.
Can you share an example of a particularly complex securities or financial dispute that you successfully resolved, and maybe what you learned from it?
Sure. I mean, I'll give you an example, and this is just an example. It was a case that two of my partners actually tried in Texas, and I was involved in the strategy and overseeing the case. We had a number of people that were let go by a major financial institution, and they were really let go for the wrong reasons, and the investigation they did was flawed. So we had, I think, 7 or 8 cases of people that were really damaged by being terminated. And we tried, it was in Texas. The first one we had was in Texas. They were around the country. So luckily we got the best case, went to hearings first. And the panel was so devastated by what they heard. There was a woman and a man. The man had a very ill child. He lost his insurance. He couldn't take care of his son's illness, couldn't pay for medicine. The woman never could enter the business again. And we wound up getting not only everything they asked for, but punitive damages, substantial legal fees. It was a real grand slam. It doesn't happen very often. based on the outcome of that case, we then had a multi-day mediation in our offices in California with the other side and the client, and we resolved the other 8 cases. And because we were fortunate and the best case, or one of the better cases, went first, it turned out to be a many, many multi-million-dollar settlement. It was great for the clients. They were very happy, very appreciative. It was great for our firm. The fees were very large. And I mention that only because that's an example where that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people that were basically getting taken advantage of and stand up for them. And we did. We did, and we settled all the cases. There was a lot of money involved. They were very appreciative. They wrote us notes. And that means a lot to me. That's really why I did this. I had a woman I represented who worked for a firm in New York, young woman, and she was it wasn't sexual harassment, it was just harassment by a young investment banker, a coworker. And we went to hearings on that, I think in the late 80s. And the panel was so turned off by this guy, because I always call the other side first and then get to ask them questions. He was so pompous and obnoxious that I think we had a 3-woman panel in those days, which is unusual. And they whacked, they gave her a multiple of what she was even entitled to because they were so annoyed. And her mother sent me a note and said, I want you to know you stood up for my daughter. And I can't tell you what that means to me and what it means to my daughter. And those are the reasons. There's other cases representing broker-dealers and investment firms where people are trying to take advantage of them. But those are the kinds of cases that really are meaningful to me. People need help, and we help them, and they thank us. And I feel a great deal of gratitude to be able to do that for people.
Yeah, and I bet hearing personal feedback coming straight from their mouth is particularly gratifying. You are a litigator, arbitrator, and negotiator. What skills do you find most crucial in each of those roles?
The things that I didn't study in college are most important. I was an economics major.
Of course.
Obviously, you need to understand deals and numbers and the economics. The skill set that's most helpful: empathy, communication skills, written and oral, which I think I have now after all these years. Psychology, which I didn't study. Grammar, English, writing. That's the biggest problem we have in hiring young lawyers. Very, very few people that we meet can write. It's just incredible to me that how much of my time I spend teaching people basic grammar, Strunk and White, elements of style kind of grammar. I've probably given out over the years 250 copies of Strunk and White to young lawyers and said, you have to read this because if you can't write, you can't work here. We have the highest standards of our product and our presentations. And if you don't learn how to write soon, you got a problem. And I said that to one of my current partners about 18, 19 years ago when he was a brand new lawyer. He'd been a law clerk for the summer, joined us. And I said the same thing. I gave him a copy of the book. I said, you have to learn to write or you don't have a place in this firm. And 6 months later, his writing had dramatically improved. He's one of the best writers in the firm now. He's a very, very substantial partner, has a huge book of business, and I'm very proud of him. But not everybody takes the cue. Not everybody does what they're supposed to do and learn what we're trying to teach them.
How many years had you been in the legal industry before you realized before you realized all those things that you mentioned that you had to know that you hadn't learned in school yet?
It was a while. I was a young lawyer, 27 years old, up against major lawyers, major law firms. I'd be in depositions in my office on Park Avenue, 3, 4 lawyers on the other side of the table making objections that I didn't fully understand. And it took me a number of years to realize that your personality, it's not a question of being aggressive. That doesn't work. And in New York, people are very aggressive. Whatever you say has to make sense. So less is more, I think. So when I go into court now, and I wait for my turn, I don't interrupt people. When the judge calls on me, usually the judge is either my age or younger, and they know of us, they know our firm, and I know they listen to me because what I say is accurate and honest and truthful, and they respect that, and our written product is excellent. So it took me, I'd say, 15 years to get to the point of being mature enough to really be an effective advocate, not just an aggressive advocate.
And you've been an arbitrator for FINRA for over 30 years, I believe. How's that experience kind of shaped your perspective on dispute resolution? And what kind of challenges have you encountered in that role?
Well, as far as how it's been helpful, it's incredibly helpful because as an advocate, you see, I try to see all sides of the case, but you're hired to advocate for your particular client. As an arbitrator, I sit there and watch all the evidence come in. I see different lawyer styles. I see different witnesses. And then when it's my turn to ask questions, I'll ask the questions that are important to me that nobody's asked. So it's incredibly helpful to see how to present the case from watching it objectively, what to do, what not to do. That's been great. As far as the frustrations, sometimes I'm usually the chairperson of the panel because of my legal background and years of experience. The frustration I have is sometimes the other panelists, they don't really get the case. They don't have the training or the experience, or they don't want to lose referrals or being picked for a panel by the big firms and big broker dealers. And sometimes we'll sit there, and I've had to dissent a number of times and say, I just don't agree with you. And sometimes I've been able to turn people around, which is almost like, Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men, which is one of the classic law movies to watch. And sometimes I just say, we're not going to agree. We can agree to disagree. I'll just dissent. And that's what I do. But that's the frustrating part, when I can't get people to see the nuances that I'm seeing because of my experience. It's a little frustrating.
Can you share your perspective on the current state of securities and financial regulatory law, and how has it evolved kind of over the course of your career?
I think it's funny you say that because I was just reading an article about crypto. The big issues are cyber fraud, crypto, and the FTC had a report that came out recently that said last year the crypto losses were at least $20 billion in the US, and probably as high as 137 billion because there's a very, very low rate of reporting. I think the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX trial shows you that the regulators completely missed. There's really no regulation. So they tend to play catch up. They're not proactively regulating a lot of these things. They're waiting until the problem happens already. And then say, oh, well, now we have to plug a hole here. Or Tom Girardi, the disbarred and disgraced lawyer in California that stole millions and millions of dollars from his clients. Well, for years, there were complaints about him that clients said, I never got my money, he's ignoring me, blah, blah, blah. Well, now the California state regulators of lawyers are adopting very, very stringent measures for trust accounts after he committed all the perfidy he did over 30 years, 40 years. It's frustrating to me because we're honest lawyers, and now it's made our work more complicated, just keeping up with the legislation. So I think the regulators are very often play catch up after there's been a big problem, after there's been a Bernie Madoff situation or an FTX situation. Then they say, well, we have to do something now. I would like to see it more proactive than reactive.
So given that, what advice would you give to young attorneys looking to pursue a career in securities and financial law, kind of based on your journey? I know you'd like to see them become extraordinary writers. What else?
Well, I would say this to any lawyer. This is not a TV show. It's a lot of lawyers become very disenchanted with what they're doing, and they, which is fine. We've had people leave our firm and become real estate brokers and open up restaurants. They do different things. You really have to spend your time and get to know what the lawyers do. It's a very detail-oriented business and profession. And, you can't just write a brief and say, well, I think this is what the outcome should be. You have to support everything you say. And some people find that very frustrating. It's not creative writing. You can't just make stuff up. And when some people actually get into the nitty-gritty of being a lawyer, a young lawyer, where that's what they do, these detail-oriented things, they don't realize what they're getting into. And I think they get very frustrated. So I think you really have to know why do you want to be a lawyer? What do you think lawyers do? And clerk, We hire law clerks all the time, summer clerks during the year. You really have to ask yourself, what do lawyers do? And if I've seen what this firm does, and I don't really want to do that, you have to figure out what you do want to do, because once you start down a path, you can always change, but it's better to know ahead of time what you like and what you don't like about what lawyers do.
How do you keep yourself up of the latest developments and trends in securities and financial law?
Oh gosh, it is. Well, we do two things. We have weekly, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we have a firm meeting. There's too many people to do it in person anymore, so we have Zoom meetings every Tuesday at 11 o'clock. We go through a very specific agenda, and one of the topics is new developments in the law. What have people seen? We share articles. We write articles, write a lot of articles about changes in the law. So I hear from my transactional partners when there's something relevant. They either send it around or bring it up on Tuesdays at the meeting. Excuse me. And I read a great deal. I read the law journal. I read publications. I mean, I read a lot. Sometimes people say, gee, I got an email from you at 1 o'clock in the mornings. Were you in another time zone? I said, no, that's I don't really sleep a lot. And that's just the fact. I'm if I get 4 to 5 hours a night, I consider myself extremely lucky. So
Sure, yeah, I bet.
it's not a 9 to 5 job. You just don't leave, turn the lights off, and it's constantly something I think about.
Do you have to kind of anticipate potential changes? I mean, like you predict what the changes might be, future developments or challenges you anticipate in securities and financial regulatory law.
When we see a problem develop, like crypto has been an example because it's such a popular topic. It's really so complicated. I knew early on that crypto was going to have many problems. We don't really do a lot of crypto cases. We get calls from a lot of people, and I listen to their story, and they've just been taken advantage of. Their money's gone to another part of the world. They've been, just swindled. When we see a problem area, like crypto, for example, I realized that was not an area we wanted to get in. That there really wasn't much we could do for the people. The old saying in our business, especially on the fraud side, is the masochist and the sadist always leave the party together. So it takes the two sides, people that think there's something magical to making money, and if somebody tells them I can help you make money, you have people who work their whole lives to accumulate money and assiduously work hard and collect the money. And then you have people that are more focused on taking the money than the people that are working hard to accumulate it. So, we kind of see trends, and then we ask ourselves, where's this going to go? What kind of regulation will come out of it? What's going on in different congressional committees, and just follow the threads of what's going on.
Are the same things that motivated you to become an attorney still what motivate you 47 years later?
Believe it or not, they do. I'm very tenacious. I don't. I'm up at night reviewing documents, rewriting them. I really focus on the quality of what we do, and I get a great deal of satisfaction from meeting people. Sometimes I tell people I can't help you. Your money's gone, or you have a problem that I don't think that we can solve for you, and we're very honest with them. But I'm still doing what I do for the same reasons that I started to do it. So I've had a great deal of success, and I'm grateful for that, and that's very nice. But I still enjoy what I do for the same reason. So when I was in my 20s, now I'm a little older, and I still do it for the same reason.
That's great. That's fantastic. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first, how can people find out more about Shustak Reynolds and Partners?
Our website is probably the best. It's www.shufirm, SHUFIRM, shufirm.com. Years ago, we were one of the first law firms in the country, really anywhere, to have websites. In 1993, we had our first website. We had email. We were dealing with big firms. We said, well, just send the documents over by email. And they'd say, like, what's email? So we've always been ahead of the curve on technology, because I'm a big believer in leveraging yourself. So they go to the website, they're going to learn about our firm and what we do. And if they need help, please call us.
So you obviously have a wealth of experience. You've represented a diverse range of clients, banks, defrauded investors. As I mentioned in your intro, you've seen it all. When was the last time that maybe a scenario that you thought to yourself, just when I thought I'd seen it all?
almost every day. I mean, I'll give you an example. I just in the paper, it's now turned out that Michael Cohen, the ex-president's former fixer, his lawyer submitted a brief to a court citing cases that don't exist. And they went to the appellate court and said, do you have this case? And they said, there is no such case, 3 cases. And this came up about a month ago. Somebody did this in a court and got sanctioned for it. And I thought to myself, I can't believe it. I can't believe that people are just making up cases. And now the court is going to have an inquiry. Who wrote this brief? Was Michael Cohen writing it? Were you writing it? How'd you come to make up these cases? And I was talking to my son the other night. I said, can you believe it that people are doing this stuff with AI and they just make up stuff? And they're going to be in a lot of trouble for this.
Hey, Erwin, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time. It's great to hear your stories and your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful talking to you. And thank you for giving me a forum to speak, Chad.
Absolutely. Great to have you. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.